Now, a number of hockey players have been training hard in preparation for the national tournaments in Tasmania and New South Wales. The National Under-18s Championship is happening in Launceston next week, while at the same time the Under-15s will gather in Bathurst for their championships. But competitors from across Queensland were planning to gather in Brisbane over Easter for some final training sessions before heading off to the competitions. So what now? Matt Cook is the Regional Hockey and Coaching Manager with Toowoomba Hockey. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Belinda, how you going?
Good, thank you. How important are this weekend's training sessions to your players in preparation for the championships?
Oh, they're definitely invaluable preparation for these kids. Ultimately, they've been training very hard for a long amount of time now, but they've been selected in Queensland teams. So ultimately, the training camps that were scheduled to be in Brisbane were an opportunity for these kids to meet their teammates from all around different parts of Queensland and come together as a team. And then they would then travel to the different locations for their national championships.
And how many players is it affecting in this area? Because, of course, the lockdown is in relation to the greater Brisbane region, but you are planning to train in Brisbane. But how many is it affecting sort of in this community, I suppose?
Yeah, we've got a number of Toowoomba and Darling Downs athletes involved in the program. So we've got two boys in the under-18 boys side, and we've got one girl who's in the under-18 women's program, and then a number of under-15 athletes as well who are playing across the Queensland number 1 and Queensland number 2 teams. And this has affected everyone. So Hockey Queensland's recently announced that these camps have now been cancelled. So they won't be able to go into Brisbane to train, which is obviously disappointing. But Hockey Queensland, I believe, is doing everything they can to still endeavour to get these teams heading to nationals next week.
So how likely do you think it is that the players won't be able to attend? What's the current situation, for example, regarding interstate travel?
Yes, so I believe everything's just in a holding pattern at the moment, and obviously Hockey Queensland and Hockey Australia are waiting on the latest advice from the governments and the powers that be, and they're doing everything they possibly can. I believe the latest advice they've given players is to go into lockdown themselves and not put themselves out in the community if they can, if they have that possibility, just to avoid any potential exposure or any potential emerging hotspots that they may enter. To ultimately give them the best chance of being able to fly out next Monday or next Tuesday to their particular national event.
What's the emotional sort of state of some of these players right now?
Oh, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. Obviously, everyone was affected last year. No matter what you did in the world, COVID was a significant disruption to everyone. But I think the false sense of hope, I suppose, last week, these kids were really excited to potentially be heading to national championships, and in the space of a week, everything's changed quite significantly. And a lot of these kids have dedicated large chunks of their lives to prepare for these national championships, and ultimately the last 6 months they've been training very hard, sometimes 3 to 4 times a week, to play in these carnivals or these championships. And quite disappointed if they can't, but ultimately they'll just wait and see, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the borders can find a solution to get these kids to these carnivals.
Matt, some might say, there'll be another carnival. You can go next year. But when it comes to sport, particularly elite sport, timing is really important, correct? There might not be another opportunity.
Certainly. I was actually listening to one of your interviews with Lee Bottomede, I think it was on Monday, and it was really interesting that he said, you've got to take every opportunity when you get, because you don't know when it might be your last. I think he had an interesting story that he was one of the youngest players in the Australian Olympic team, and he was really happy with a silver medal in his first Olympics, but it ended up being his last Olympics. And at the time, I think he thought he might have a number of Olympics still left in him. And with these players as well, obviously it's not the Olympic Games, but for some of them, it's something that they've trained a long time for, and ultimately have sacrificed a lot of things to get to. So hopefully they'll be able to find a solution to get some of them away, because as you said, you just don't know what opportunities or what could lie ahead in the future, and whether you may or may not be able to get to some of these events in the future as well.
Thank you so much for talking to me this morning, Matt.
No worries. Thanks, Linda.
Have a good Easter.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe.
It's Matt Cook from Toowoomba Hockey just talking about the impact on some of the kids that are training for the national championships and some from this region as well.